This is hilarious.
So he raided a Hyundai plant in Georgia and arrested 475 workers. Hyundai is, of course, a South Korean company, and they might think twice before they build any more factories in this country. I mean, wouldn't you? Or if you were, say, Japan or China or Thailand, and you were considering doing what our president wants and increasing American manufacturing by building a factory there, now you're probably not going to do that, right? Because it might get raided by ICE and all of the immigrants from your country, just like at the Hyundai plant, 475 South Korean immigrants were detained by ICE. So he wants to do all these tariffs to incentivize American manufacturing growth, but then he raids the factories. So which is it, you psycho? The sheer incompetence of this administration is mind-boggling. There's absolutely no one on planet Earth who would see that as a good move. No one. Someone had to greenlight that raid on that factory. Someone in his administration. Homan or Kristi Noem, I don't know. But these people are walking around with empty skulls. They don't have brains. That's the only conclusion we can come to. Do you know how much money Georgia as a state is going to lose because of this?
ICE raids Hyundai plant in Georgia, raiding and arresting over 475 Korean workers.
All yours. Video filmed inside the plant shows armed Homeland Security agents executing a search warrant Thursday.
We need construction to cease immediately. We need all work to end on the site right now.
Officers can be seen outside, rounding up hundreds of workers in yellow vests. Nearly 500 people were arrested. The majority were South Korean nationals. U.S. officials said all had either entered the country illegally, overstayed their visas, or were not authorized to work. Stephen Schrank is the special agent in charge.
Together, we are sending a clear and unequivocal message that those who exploit our workforce, undermine our economy, and violate federal laws will be held accountable.
The massive $7.6 billion battery plant, a joint venture between South Korean companies LG and Hyundai, covers nearly 3,000 acres and is the largest economic project in Georgia's history.
On behalf of all Georgians, I want to thank you.
3 years ago, Governor Brian Kemp welcomed its opening. Authorities alleged the plant had been under investigation for what it said were illegal practices for months.
There's helicopters, Humvees, Georgia State Police.
Production supervisor Casey Deacon was at the facility when the raid took place.
I would assume they would continue, production. However, with that significant loss with personnel, I don't know how they're going to go forward.
Hyundai and LG said that they are cooperating with law enforcement. All of this comes just a week after the South Korean president met with President Trump at the White House to negotiate trade and tariffs. The Korean president pledged $150 billion by Korean companies into the U.S., and that includes $26 billion by Hyundai.
Skylar Henry in Elabel, Georgia. Thank you.
The massive crackdown at South Korean-owned facility has raised massive outrage in Seoul. It has raised tension over U.S.-Korean relations.
So there were 452 illegals apprehended at the Hyundai mega plant construction site yesterday near Savannah. And I was the one that reported the information that I had to ICE. But it goes beyond just someone working illegally. Let me explain to you. These people are working for slave wages. Some are not getting paid. Some are being trafficked. They send money home to their country. They give money to their handler. They have hardly anything left. They live in homes 5 families deep, have no quality of life. It's modern day slavery. So if you think that ICE is just going in and ripping people out of their jobs, these hardworking people that want a better life, well, guess what? Politicians have really screwed these people, because when they came here, they thought they were, hey, the border's open, we're coming in, we're going to get the 5-star treatment, and we can go to the big Walmart, and we can live in a 5-star hotel, and that's just not how it is. It's very bad conditions, very inhumane, and the Biden administration started a humanitarian crisis. So y'all can't just look at it like they're ripping good people off the job. They're probably saving their lives in the long run.
Well, this woman claims she's the one who reported dozens of illegal immigrant workers at a Hyundai factory in Georgia to ICE, sparking outrage and making headlines nationwide. So this is the woman who reported that this Hyundai factory had over a dozen immigrant workers from Korea, and well, these people lost their jobs while she gets the spotlight and she's all over the news. Do you think she did what was right reporting these illegal immigrants, or should have just let these people work and earn money and earn a living? Because at the end of the day, these people pay tax, but that doesn't give them a way out because they're illegal. Tell me what you think down in the comments.
This is a video of ICE immigration agents raiding a Hyundai factory in Georgia in the US, arresting 475 people, 300 of them South Korean nationals. More than 400 federal, state, and local officers raided the battery production facility, prompting some workers to flee. Employees were lined up along walls, shackled and loaded onto buses. US officials say that this operation is one of the biggest crackdowns on illegal immigration so far. They say the people detained were found to be working without proper visas. Some were reported to be in the US on the visa waiver program, which allows tourism or business days of up to 90 days.
They were illegal aliens, and ICE was just doing its job.
South Korea is a staunch US ally, and the raid comes only a week after President Donald Trump hosted the South Korean President Lee Jae-myung at the White House, where he pledged to invest $150 billion in the US, including in battery manufacturing. The investments in the US comes after President Trump had imposed 15% tariffs on South Korean imports.
Are you concerned at all about, your immigration agenda potentially clashing with these economic goals?
Well, we want to get along with other countries, and we want to have a great, stable workforce. And we had, as I understand it, a lot of illegal aliens, some not the best of people. So, look, they're doing their job. That's what they have to do.
The raid is causing diplomatic concerns, and emergency meetings are being held in Seoul. South Korean executives told local media that they needed technicians on site to get the factories up and running. The lithium-ion battery plant was expected to start operating next year, but construction has stopped in the wake of the raids. No charges have yet to be filed, and 475 people remain in ICE detention.
So a massive ICE raid just went down at Hyundai's new EV battery factory in Georgia, and it's making headlines worldwide. Here's what's officially confirmed. ICE detained around 475 people, and most of them were South Korean nationals. Now, according to Homeland Security, most of them were here illegally, or at least without proper authorization. Either they overstayed their visas, or simply that they came without the right paperwork. But here's an important detail that is getting overlooked. None of them were direct Hyundai or LG employees. They were mostly working for contractors and subcontractors that were building the factory. Now, this is important because there's a lot of viral posts that are going around saying that Hyundai imported workers to directly work in these factories without giving Americans the chance to get those jobs. And that just isn't backed up by evidence. Hyundai has since said that they are investigating their suppliers, and the South Korean government has stepped in. The South Korean government is promising its citizens that they will save them. The White House has also said that moving forward, they're going to strictly enforce foreign worker laws. So yes, the raid happened. Yes, hundreds of people were detained. At the moment, Hyundai is saying they had nothing to do with this, but in reality, they're the parent company. They should be overseeing everything. Inevitably, this will come back and bite them, regardless if they knew or they didn't know. Because at the end of the day, we have to hold these corporations responsible.
Did y'all hear about ICE agents raiding a Hyundai plant in Georgia, and they arrested 475 immigrants, and most of them were Korean? So if you didn't know, in Georgia, there is a mega Hyundai plant. And today, ICE agents said they scored one of the biggest immigration sweeps of history. So this Honda mega plant is located about 25 miles southeast of Savannah, Georgia, and it's located in Forkston, Georgia. Now, ICE is saying that somebody contacted them and told them that they were concerned about the immigration status of some of their workers or employees, but y'all, we don't believe that. So if you don't know, South Korea don't play that, y'all. They've already sent diplomatics from Washington to Georgia to see what's going on because they say some laws are being broken. Hyundai has responded and they said the people that arrested, they don't believe worked directly for them, but were contractors. Well, Hyundai is basically trying to get the heat off them, basically saying that the third-party contractors that they use to hire these employees, they hope that they did all of the employment verification on their end. Now, the United States Attorney General, Margaret Heap, she basically said that she does not want employers to exploit illegal workers by gaining an unfair advantage for hiring illegals. I think she basically said these companies trying to steal and not pay them taxes. So if you live in Georgia and you want to work at the Hyundai plant, y'all, I guess they hiring.
So South Korea's government came out and said they are going to defend and have the backs of the workers that were arrested in Georgia. I would like to shed some light on this because I worked in a facility very similar to that for about 7 years. Specifically, I want to talk about this video first. You see all the guys in the white helmets and the uniform jumpsuits? Those are South Korean engineers. The facility I worked at was Japanese owned and they did the same exact thing. Okay, it's a South Korean facility. So it makes a lot of sense for them to have South Korean engineers over here building it. Furthermore, I guarantee this is what happened because in that video, you can see them clearly giving ICE agents paperwork. If they were illegal, they wouldn't have fucking paperwork. But here's what it is. It's called a non-migrant visa. Believe it or not, foreign workers under certain agreements can work in the United States temporarily. It's usually for like a 4 to 6 week period of time. Then you got to go back home for like 4 to 6 weeks as well. But then you can come back and do it again under specific circumstances. This is exactly what the Japanese did when they built the facility I worked at. It was built by Japanese engineers, but American workers ran the facility. And here's a fun fact for you. Almost 7% of manufacturing facilities in the United States are owned by foreign companies. Do you want to know why they put their facilities in the United States? Because on average, we actually work for less. So that means they would have to pay their people in their country more. So why would they have illegal migrants working here? Just put them to work where they're already there. Makes no sense. But before I go, there's been now articles coming out where there were supposed to be upwards to 8,000 American jobs that were going to be available at that plant when it was done being built. Yeah, that's not going to happen anymore. Okay, bye.
So ICE raided a Hyundai plant in Georgia on Thursday, September 4th, and detained nearly 500 people. And out of those 500, a vast majority of them were South Korean nationals. As a first-generation Korean American myself, I completely understand that our survival in the Western culture assimilation is to keep our head down, go with the flow, not make any noise. And this is where that model minority myth comes from. But I really hate that it takes a big event like this in order for people to form some empathy and to realize that standing up against ICE is not just standing up for one demographic, but it's standing up for everyone. It's super frustrating to see a bunch of Asian American creators only start to talk about it now because they see that it's affecting their community, while they've been completely silent in the past when all of these other raids have been happening. I just want to remind you guys that the model minority is a myth and it's meant to pit us against one another. If there is even one group oppressed, then we are all oppressed. It's also important to acknowledge the power that the South Korean government holds within the world and how much of a privilege this is. There are so many people who come to the US fleeing their home country and seeking refuge. The South Korean government is currently holding press conferences advocating for the rights of the people who were taken up in this raid so that they're not unfairly infringed upon, which is such a privilege. I hope this was a wake-up call for a lot of Asian Americans out there. Your proximity to whiteness will not save you because you will always be seen as other.
Frankly, Chris, it's surprising that we haven't seen raids of this scale at workplaces yet. We've seen such a crackdown in cities, primarily those run by Democrat mayors. We haven't seen a lot of workplace raids. And ICE officers will tell you, if you want to get big numbers, as this administration does, workplaces are typically where they start. So this one stands out. They went into this Hyundai facility in Georgia. We understand more than 400 people were arrested. Now, the special agent in charge of Homeland Security investigations in Georgia, the part of ICE that carried this out, said this was not something that is part of the immigration crackdown you're seeing that's happening week by week, day by day across the country, that this took months of planning. Take a listen to what he said.
This was not a immigration operation where agents went into the premises, rounded up folks, and put them on buses. This has been a multi-month criminal investigation where we have developed evidence conducted interviews, gathered documents, and presented that evidence to the court in order to obtain a judicial search warrant. Yesterday, we executed that search warrant and gathered additional evidence that will support this investigation.
And Chris, oftentimes what we see when there are workers who are working undocumented is that they may have used someone else's identification and tax number in order to get that job. We're also hearing from the company who said that it was their understanding so far that none of those detained is directly employed by the Hyundai Motor Company. They say we prioritize the safety and well-being of everyone working at the site and comply with all laws and regulations wherever we operate. And I have to say, from covering workplace rates in the past, that can sometimes be common, that there can be subcontractors and they can even have contractors who do all of the hiring that aren't talking to the parent company. Sometimes it can distance themselves from liability in situations like this. But in this case, they're saying these were not people directly working for them, Chris.
Did you see this raid at the Hyundai construction site? Well, this woman is allegedly responsible for the raid. Listen to what she had to say.
So there were 452 illegals, and I was the one that reported the information that I had to ICE. But it goes beyond just someone working illegally. Let me explain to you. These people are working for slave wages. Some are not getting paid. Some are being trafficked. They send money home to their country. They give money to their handler. They have hardly anything left. They live in homes of 5 families deep, have no quality of life. It's modern day slavery. So if you think that ICE is just going in and ripping people out of their jobs, these hardworking people that want a better life, well, guess what? Politicians have really screwed these people, because when they came here, they thought they were, hey, the border's open, we're coming in, we're going to get the 5-star treatment, and we can go to the big Walmart, and we can live in a 5-star hotel, and that's just not how it is.
So this is Tory Branham, a Republican candidate for Georgia's 12th congressional district, who as a politician should have thought about how shutting down the single biggest economic investment made by a company in Georgia's history would affect her constituents. This was confirmed by Rolling Stone, and according to the report, Tory recruited a Spanish-speaking union worker who had access to the site to become her informant. After hearing rumors of the construction site using undocumented labor and 3 worker deaths at the site. Ironically, the other workers trusted this union worker because he had previously helped them win lawsuits against unsafe work conditions. So Tory took the rumors and the information from the informants and gave it to authorities. Authorities did say that this was a part of a months-long investigation with multiple agencies, but did not mention that this was started by Tory. And Tory is proud of what she did, saying, quote, "This is what I voted for, to get rid of a lot of," and that word, but not everyone that was detained was undocumented. There are already reports that 2 people that were detained were engineers who came to the U.S. to advise briefly on the work and were planning to go back to South Korea soon. Also, some crossed into the U.S. undocumented, some had visa waivers and were prohibited from working, and some had overstayed their visas. But they didn't go there with the knowledge of who was working undocumented, because they were harassing everyone, including people with status. When I first saw her video, I knew that she had no actual sympathy for the workers. Because if she did, she would have found a way to hold the corporation accountable and not send the Gestapo goon after the workers. All she did was help the Trump administration rip more families apart and financially ruin them for her political gain. So like I said in my first video, these are people whose only infraction was probably working without authorization. And I guarantee you that most of them would fix their status if this government didn't keep intentionally making it difficult for people to do so. But like I said before, this government wants to keep people undocumented so they can be exploited, used as pawns in these political games, and are the ones that end up being blamed for everything while the bosses and corporations get off free.
You could not even make this stuff up if you tried. So this giant Hyundai battery factory in the state of Georgia, my native state, by the way, just had a huge ICE raid in which they took over 450 people into custody that are not here legally. And the kicker of all this, well, that's a kicker, but also another kicker, and I'm going to show you at the end after this video, is that in March of 2022, Joe Biden had a press release that this plant was going to be, he promised that this plant was going to be employing American workers.
After a massive immigration raid at a Hyundai plant, this is just outside of Savannah. This is one of the largest and most high-profile manufacturing sites in the state, employing about 1,400 people. Workers say hundreds of agents in several different agencies participated in the sting. We are actively conducting an investigation into unlawful employment practices going on at this massive multi-hundred acre construction site behind me. Homeland Security says the investigation is expected to continue beyond tonight. Hyundai says that it is cooperating with law enforcement and committed to abiding by all labor and immigration regulation.
And here is the press release by Joe Biden. I'm sorry, it was October of 2022, not March. I was wrong, but you can read all of that if you want. Let's just go towards the end. This will create more than 8,000 jobs. Making electric vehicles and batteries will help the entire community around Bryan County with good jobs people can raise a family on and ultimately help lower costs for American people. This has been at the heart of this historic legislation we have passed over the past 2 years.
And ABC's Luke Barr has more on that. So, Luke, what's the latest on this raid?
Well, Diane, this is the largest raid in Homeland Security investigations history. And this didn't initially start out as an immigration raid. This was a criminal investigation that actually turned into that big raid. 475 individuals arrested. Most were Korean nationals, according to the special agent in charge who just gave a briefing to reporters. They say that they looked at the network of subcontractors that this plant used. They went in, they wanted to investigate who was working there, and then they had all of the documents checked that needed to be checked, and then they turned those that needed to go to ICE. They turned them over to immigration authorities for processing and for potential deportation.
On an investment standpoint, this doesn't look good for ICE to raid the Hyundai factory, because these companies are investing billions of dollars in the country or in the economy. And here you are just raiding down on the factory without just reaching out to one of the executives or CEOs or someone higher up to kind of figure out what's going on at the factory. Instead, they just pulled this big, raid and created all this unnecessary, news. And it just doesn't look good. And now the South Korean officials, they are upset because they hope that their workers' human rights aren't being violated. But I think this could have been handled a little bit better. They didn't have to do this huge raid when they could have just reached out to someone at Hyundai to kind of figure out what's going on at that factory. But hopefully they don't pull out of the U.S. and take their business somewhere else, because then it's going to hurt the economy.
So I'm sure many of you guys have seen this video of this lady named Tori Branham saying that she was the one that called ICE on the Hyundai manufacturing plant near Savannah, Georgia, where they're constructing a facility that they're going to build electric vehicle batteries, etc., right? Where ICE claims they conducted their largest worksite raid in history. Approximately 475 people. She says that she's the one that called them because there were so many labor law violations, that people were being worked like slaves, all that stuff. Those were her words, right? Well, guess what? She's running for Congress in Georgia. Tori Branham for Congress. And that leads me to believe that none of what she said in that video is true. You know why? She is most likely just trying to score points with whatever her base is in whatever area of Georgia she lives, whatever MAGA county she's from, so that when she runs for office, everyone knows her as, oh yeah, that lady from TikTok that called ICE on all those South Korean illegals. Yeah, let's vote for her. She's a hardliner on immigration, just like our daddy Trump, so let's vote for her. Do you guys want to know how much South Korea is investing into the United States in the coming years with factories like this, for Hyundai, for companies like LG, etc.? $350 billion. Now imagine, they're investing into this manufacturing plant near Savannah, Georgia, in the deep south, where places like this are absolutely necessary. People need jobs, good paying jobs with benefits. There needs to be industry, more, investment into the local economy. And then ICE goes ahead and does this. Oh my God, bro. Now, mind you, the South Korean government already made a statement where they said the economic activities of our investment companies and the rights and interests of our citizens must not be unjustly violated during U.S. law enforcement proceedings. And guess what? That's exactly what happened, because the employees that these people detained from South Korea, like people from LG, were on business trips with various visas or visas under a waiver program to provide technical guidance for building the battery factory. People like engineers, software specialists, so many different professionals that were there to help complete building this place, right? But unfortunately, the racism of white Americans in this country, in particular in the South, is going to mess up the plate, right? It's going to mess up billions of dollars in investments simply because, like I said in my video in Spanish yesterday, the dream of these people is to see only people with blonde hair, blue eyes, and white skin work in these kinds of jobs that are dignified with benefits that can provide people a good life for them and their families. Their worst nightmare is seeing black and brown people have those same opportunities, right? So if they see that South Korean nationals are working in that factory, that is uncomfortable for them. They don't like that, right? So they need to do anything they can to stop it. Well, now billions of dollars are at stake of being lost and invested elsewhere, whether that's Mexico, Canada, China, India, anywhere else but the United States. Thanks to racism, because MAGA.
And a lot of Koreans in Georgia, back during the election, the presidential election, talked about how they were going to vote for Trump because of economy and immigration. Those were the two things that they were very focused on during the election, was the economy and immigration. And now look. A lot of those businesses are closing, and now they're rounding up our people. I hope this is a wake-up call that proximity to whiteness and the fact that we will never be considered equal to white people, no matter what we do, no matter how, successful we become, we will never be seen as their equal. They still have the same racist rhetoric that they do about us.
They were supposed to invest in America, meaning they were supposed to bring American jobs for Americans. It wasn't for them to bring over these companies and then bring over 450 to 500 nationals from said country. It says South Korea has already committed $30 billion in investments here, and today they're announcing another $22 billion in addition. That'll grow their U.S. workforce from 4,000 to 20,000 workers by 2025, investing in a range of advanced technologies, some of which Tony already mentioned, from semiconductors to large capacity batteries to electric vehicle chargers and to pharmaceuticals. And the construction in America means jobs for, guess what? Americans. You see that? The economy has created 613,000 overall manufacturing jobs. Yeah, those were for illegals. Those are not for Americans. Just manufacturing jobs. Today's announcement is also proof that America is back to working with our allies. So he lied. Those jobs were supposed to be for Americans. The construction job was supposed to be for Americans, not his own fucking people. So you know what? This is the fuck around and find out stage. Stop playing with us. Stop playing with my president. If they don't like it, then guess what? They could take their company and they could shove it. I'm sick and tired of these countries coming over here playing in our fucking faces. Y'all come over here and y'all want to bring all of these jobs and all of this technology, and then y'all make it seem as if y'all going to do it to better our people, but only thing you're doing is bettering your people.
More protests as immigration operations ramp up across the country. Chicago now bracing for a possible federal crackdown in the city as early as this weekend. It comes after many people were detained on the job at factories in Georgia and New York. ABC's Rena Roy has the details.
protests outside this ICE processing center in Illinois, with Governor J.B. Pritzker saying federal immigration enforcement could ramp up this weekend.
Everyone I know is scared. People are nervous to walk their kids to school. Even people that are documented.
Pritzker visiting a school in a predominantly Latino neighborhood, saying there are safeguards in place to help protect the community.
We actually do have laws in place where law enforcement, which I know they're afraid of, and I know their parents are afraid of, but where law enforcement not only can't, are not allowed, are disallowed, that's illegal, for them to do something that they're fearing.
President Trump also threatening to send National Guard troops into Chicago to address what he calls a crime emergency. According to Chicago police data, crime is actually down.
I think this is a terrible act of political theater that is underway at the expense of a lot of people and at the expense of taxpayers.
In Georgia, Homeland Security saying 475 people were detained while working at a Hyundai manufacturing site Thursday. ATF Atlanta on site posting these images on social media.
Homeland Security investigations, in coordination with our law enforcement partners, executed a judicial search warrant as part of an ongoing criminal investigation into allegations of unlawful employment practices and serious federal crimes.
In New York State on the same day, the governor saying at least 40 people were detained while working at a factory that makes specialty nutrition bars.
I won't support any effort to separate families. I think it's appalling.
Immigration officials have not provided details on the New York operation. In Georgia, officials say no charges have been filed against any of the people who were detained. Rena Roy, ABC News, New York.
All right, y'all, 475 illegals working up at this Hyundai factory here in Georgia, right? Now, when they built this factory, I'm in Georgia, so when they built this factory, one of the things that they promoted to get the land to be able to build this was bring jobs to Georgians, right? Get Georgians jobs. That was a huge part of this, and the amount of jobs that it was going to create. That's why they got fast track for permits. That's why they got the land so cheap. That's why they got so many benefits from the state of Georgia to put this place up there. And what's going on? They bring in all these illegals to work there. So all the actual people that are here, that are legal citizens of America, they don't get the job. No, you're going to go put it off to these Mexicans and these other illegal immigrants and pay them half of what you would pay a regular, just American citizen. It's not right. It's not right. It's absolutely messed up. And I think that the company, Hyundai, should be fined like $250,000 per person that they had up there working that wasn't legal. It's just, there has to be consequences to these actions, because this one really irks me, because this was made for Georgia people to have jobs, and now you're not giving it to Georgia people. You're giving it to people that ran over the border from overseas or over the border. It's messed up.
A Hyundai plant in Savannah, Georgia was just raided by ICE that detained about 500 people, and over 300 of them were Korean nationals. Like, this is major. Like, I talked about the Jakarta method a couple days ago. The U.S. did the same thing in Korea, in Jeju, where there was a socialist movement in Korea, and the U.S. did not like that. So the U.S. killed hundreds of thousands of Koreans and made South Korea a major U.S. military stronghold in the East. So a couple months ago, when China, Japan, and Korea had a little meeting, and we were all just like, that is wild, given the history. Like, the Korean government, like, they are not going to be happy about this. And this is just like another pebble in the pail toward perhaps Korea pushing against U.S. military occupation. Because it's interesting, like, growing up Korean in America, like, we're fed this lie about the U.S. in Korea, how, like, the U.S., like, liberated us. But when you actually look at the history, baby, it's, like, so far from the truth. I don't know. Also, I miss 101, wearing my 101 t-shirt today. This was never about immigrating here legally, because all these Korean nationals were here legally, working, building infrastructure for the U.S. on American soil. And if they can be detained, if you're Korean living in the United States right now and you don't think that this has anything to do with you, or you're not bothered by this, baby, you better gird your loins.
Thank you for watching Great Minds Blacks.